Hello? Oh, good. Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to start talking, so you hurry up and sit down so we can all start talking. All right, so this is the youth group that went to Cuba. And just on behalf of them and all of the youth leaders, thank you for your support financially and through your prayers and just by being a church family who loves and cares for everyone. And so we're going to go through each youth and adult has like a different subject they're going to share on. And we're hoping we'll have time for questions at the end. So if you have them, store them away. Also, next Sunday is Mission Fellowship Meal. So find them, track them down, sit next to them, and ask them about the trip. They might act really scared at first, but I'm sure they'd love to talk to you. But we're going to get started with Elena.
Hello, my name's Elena Martin, and I had the pleasure of joining the Cuba missions trip. I'll be speaking about the location and the home that we stayed in. We stayed in a beautiful outdoorsy home surrounded by other houses and mango trees. The house was much nicer than others in Cuba, yet would be considered of lower wealth with a couple liabilities in the United States. Although all parts of the house had a roof, most parts of the house we stayed in were not fully enclosed, almost like a really big deck. The dining area was like a deck with a roof, very open and the best spot to cool down if there's a breeze. And unlike other houses here, the only clutter in the dining room was condiments. We all shared a bedroom with two others, and with that we shared a toilet with a curtain and a shower with a curtain. When we all stepped foot into the home of Ida, Idita, and Andreas, we were immediately welcomed as their family, even with such little communication. Andreas cooked us meals, and an amazing chef as well. In fact, he had cooked for the previous president of Cuba. Both Ida and Idita would set tables, serve food, and clean up. Although we always insisted our help, they acted as if it wasn't necessary. Idita was married to Andreas and was very much a mother of us all. When first arriving, she picked up quickly that many of us were admiring the mangoes, so she brought us a bucket to enjoy. She reminded us to peel the skin and always served a second dessert to those who finished. If anyone learned Spanish, it was to figure out that no más, por favor, meant no more, please. They all insisted on washing our clothes and would hang them out for us. They swept our rooms out, scrubbed our showers, and threw out our trash every day, along with the many chores they did for us. They spoke as much as they could with us, even when we smiled and stared in confusion. We had a language barrier between us, but we all felt so connected by the end of the trip. Ida, Idita, and Andreas made their house a home for us. Thank you.
Good morning. So my name is Braylon. I was also one of the youth that was privileged to go on this trip. I'm going to be talking about the leaders that helped us while we were in Cuba, just to organize everything, get us what we needed to get done, and things like that. So one of the people that we worked with, their name was Willie. They were one of the central people that worked with the mission that was in Cuba. They helped organize all the activities we were going to do and brought us to the mission and showed us what they had planned in Cuba for us. Another person that we worked with was Yoel. He was one of the key people that stayed with us while we were in Cuba. He was with us every single day. He brought us to all the activities that we did, such as the painting, farming, handing out meals, and other things like that. He was also a key translator that we had. He helped us talk to the people that we saw and just like help us pray with them and other things like that. One of the other key people that we worked with was Daniela. That's the person that's up there right now, I think, yeah. And she was also one of the key translators. She was, I think, 20, and she was the daughter. She was the daughter of Yoel. She also helped us bring us to the other places. She was one of the first people that we met while we were in Cuba. She helped us just create connections with those that we met in Cuba and also was a great role model to all of us that were there. She was definitely very open and kind and very fun to be around. She taught us lots of games, and we just had a lot of fun while we were with her. So these 3 people, they just like overall helped us while we were in Cuba. They gave us a long-lasting connection with the people there and an experience to tell you all about, and they were just a huge help while we were there.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Jaden, and I'll just be talking about Cuba kind of as like a whole. So Cuba is a third world country, and it's run by a communist government, but it's not really all that bad. It just means that a lot of the private sector is limited, and the government has a lot more money than the rest of the people. So down there, there's like the economy is all messed up. It's doctors, they only earn $25 a month, which is not very much to live off of, and the food's just as expensive as it is here. So it's really hard for people to make do with life down there. And so the community really has to gather together and share with each other and be very generous in that manner to even just have enough food to eat. Down there, there's like a big medical need because the hospitals aren't funded very well by the government, and there's a shortage of doctors too. So you have to bring your own supplies to have certain surgeries done. It's just like a whole big thing there. There's a lot of lack of energy down there also. Like when we were there, and the area was 20 out of the 24 hours there was no power, and most of the houses, they don't have generators either. But we were blessed with a diesel generator while we were staying there, which was very welcome. So the people there, they kind of gave up a little bit of hope there. They used to call it blackouts, but now they just call it lights on because of the really short amount of time that there is electric. And some people even wish that there was no power at all, because then they wouldn't know what it's like to have that small blessing and realize what they have to go with without it. So yeah, there's just overall it's just completely different country and culture.
Hello, my name is Cameron Horst, and I'm going to be talking about the farming we did down there. We visited 2 farms and helped work. The first farm was about 40 minutes away from where we were staying, and we got there and we helped pick mangoes off the trees and off the ground, put them in a wheelbarrow, and just filled up about 4 big sacks of mangoes. And then after that, we cleared a bunch of palm leaves off like the border of the property. It wasn't a very big farm. It was kind of, around here it'd be a very small farm, and it's just so different from any farm around here. But we were there Monday and Tuesday. The second day, they were just continuing to clean up palm leaves. And then the second place we went is at a church, and we helped hand pick a bunch of weeds, a very big area. There's 18 of us, and it took a very long time. It was a big area. And me, Brandon, and Christian, and Blake, we also moved a big pile of, I think it was sandstone. I'm not sure really what it was. It was sandy, and I think we were making a pad for them to pour concrete. And yeah, that's pretty much what we did there at the farms. It was very hot, very sweaty work, I guess. But thank you.
One thing that I noticed when we were in Cuba is that they have church, like, it feels like almost every day. And throughout the week, we were able to sit in on some men's and women's meetings or whatever. And some of these people didn't have much or had just came to Christ. And, like, some of them had been involved in, like, witchcraft kind of stuff. But it was really interesting to see how their lives had changed once they came to Jesus. And we got to sit in on some of this, even though we couldn't understand them. We had translators there, and just hanging out with them was a blessing, because it's very different than here. Like here, we don't have church every day. Like it's Sunday and Wednesday Bible study, and that's kind of it. But in Cuba, it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's all different groups of people. And interacting with some of these people was really interesting.
My name is Reagan, and I'm going to be talking about the one church we visited. They had groups of people with disabilities would come, and they would all gather together and worship together. And they would split up into two groups, one with the adults, and a couple of them stayed with the adults, and they prayed and stuff together and debriefed. And the kids would come into these two classrooms, and I had the privilege to be sitting in one of those classrooms. And it was the one classroom I was in, they were reading a book, and they had different poems, and they would all close their eyes and just listen to what they had and what they would learn from it. And so it was really cool. Actually, the one story, the short story of it, there was these two little boys, and they were dancing beforehand, and it was really cool. They had surgery on their ankles, so they couldn't really walk a whole lot, and so they were very unstable. But they didn't want to go into the younger group of kids, so they stayed with their sister in the room I was in. And so they were coloring and stuff, and so I was like, all right, we brought a whole bunch of kids' stuff down. So I went and got some Play-Doh, some coloring books, and markers and stuff. And they went, and I gave it back I took it to the room, and I gave it to the couple kids that were in the room. And they had the biggest smile on their face. And it was just very, eye-opening to me that once they get new things, it's just, they're so thankful. And they were playing with that Play-Doh for the very long time we were in that room. And yeah, it was hot and sweaty, and the fans weren't on. But they just had so much joy, and yeah, it was just really eye-opening.
Good morning. My name is Blake, and I will be talking about the meal distribution. So Friday, the last full day of our trip, we handed out some food to the poorer people of Cuba. We handed out beans, rice, garlic, and some veggies. We handed them out by traveling around in horse-drawn carriages, and then we stayed at their houses and prayed with them and got to know them a bit. It was really, really eye-opening to see how grateful they were for so little, and it was just, yeah.
Okay. My name is Shirley, and I was so blessed to be able to go with this awesome group. So when you look at this group, you're looking at a bunch of really hardworking kids who are definitely sold out for Christ. So if you want more details, like Alyssa said, meet up with me, and I will give you details about your awesome kids. So my part is to share, we heard a testimony of one of the local Cuban pastors. When he was 3, his mom died, so he and his 4 siblings had to go live with their uncle and aunt, and this uncle started beating him, and he regularly beat him until age 13. He was beating him one day, and he decided, no one is ever going to beat me again. So he just became a fighter and committed many crimes. They put him in juvenile prison, and then after 3 years, they decided, you need to go to an adult prison. So at age 16, he went to an adult prison, and he just kept killing until they finally came to him and said, you're going to go to prison for life. So before he went to that other prison for life, they had a doctor that came in to see him, and this doctor said to him, now you have to understand, this is communist Cuba here. So this doctor came in and said, do you know Jesus? And he said, no, but I would like to. So he told him John 3:16, and that's how he got introduced to Jesus. Then, trying to keep this short. So then after that, it went a little while. He was transferred to the prison where he was supposed to be there for life. And when he got there, they said, your records from your old prison were destroyed. We don't have any records of your past crimes. So we're going to let you go free. So he was allowed to go free. And when he decided to go to church, so when he went to church, the people there knew him because they knew of all his crimes. And they said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, I know Jesus." And they were scared of him. So he took his knife out of his back pocket, which he always carried, gave it to them, and he said, "I want to make a change." So after a few years, he met a woman that he was interested in dating, but her father was the chief of the police for like 27 years. So he knew this guy. So he said, what are you coming here for? And he said, "I'm coming to see your daughter." And this guy said, "No, if you're coming to see my son, that's okay, but you can't come to see my daughter." But anyway, they've been married for 14 years now, and he has 7 churches. We visited his mother church, and then he has 7 more. But he was wild. He would go walking kind of up and down the aisles and just really sold out for Christ. So he had some work that needed done the next day. So the kids, we all went and we were cleaning up this one area. And that card is a picture that Sarah made. She couldn't make it this morning. It's of a cow. So we went together and bought him a cow. He had a permit. They have to get a permit for everything. So the kids, Blake, I think, went around and helped. If people wanted to give money, it was no pressure, but it was $200 American to buy a cow. So we bought a cow for him, and that is a picture. They were so delighted when they got this gift of this cow, because just as Jaden said, they make like $20 to $25 a month, so you can only imagine what $200 is to them. So anyway, we just are praising God. At the end of his testimony, we asked, "How can we pray for you?" And he said, "I want to keep Jesus," and he went like this. He said, "I want to keep Jesus straight." And he said, "Nunca," he never wanted to turn. Nunca is never in Spanish. Never wanted to turn to the right or to the left. I just want to keep focused on Jesus. So that's my prayer for all these kids and all of us, to be like that doctor, to share the gospel when we can, but also keep Jesus like straight in front of us.
Hello, my name is Chloe, and I will be sharing about worship throughout our trip in Cuba. So worship was a huge element throughout our stay there. It was the time we spent worshiping together as a group and also with fellow Christians that were in Cuba. So Daniela, the daughter of Yuel, who we had talked about earlier, Monday night, I believe it was, before Pastor Bartolo shared his testimony with us, she played guitar and led worship for us. And we had mentioned to her that there's a few of us that like to play guitar and that, we really enjoyed the singing time. And she kindly let us borrow her guitar for the entire week, which I can only imagine how insane of a decision that was for her because of how expensive it would be there. But her generosity led to us singing almost every night on the porch and rooftop, praising Jesus and enjoying the music together. Some other worship-focused moments of our trip were Sunday, our first full day there during church, and during our meeting with the youth group there. We had so much fun dancing and singing with all of the kids our age, it was just such a highlight of the trip. And also the church services Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday night were filled with so much dancing and praise in both Spanish and English, which was so cool to hear us singing the same songs all at once in different languages. The song Goodness of God quickly became an important one to our group, and Pastor Bartolo gave us the opportunity Wednesday evening at his home church to lead it in front of his congregation, which was one of my personal highlights of the trip. It was a really special moment. And all in all, worshiping the Lord as a group made such a special impact on our stay in Cuba and is a part of the trip that I think none of us will really ever forget.
Hi everyone, my name's Johnny. So I get to talk about the evenings and when we were done all our work and what we did. So firstly, there was ice cream down the road a little bit, probably 3 blocks, and I love ice cream. I think we all love ice cream. We got lots of ice cream. You could get a little cone for 33 cents, I think. And then at the actual ice cream shop, it was like $1.50 maybe for a good bit of ice cream. So I had a good bit of ice cream. Like Chloe said, Daniela did let us have her guitar. So we played lots of guitar in the evenings, sang lots of songs, and some of us went out of our comfort zones. Also, at this house we were staying at, there was kind of a roof that you could just walk out onto. So we were on the roof, near the wires and the edges, more than we should have been. But yeah, we sat on the roof because there was a nice breeze and it was cool, and we played games and sang songs out there. Also, some more games we played was, especially a big one, was Spicy Uno. I did not play that game, but I know lots of others did, so you can talk to them about that. There was also a beach about 5-10 minute drive, something like that, that we went to either in the evenings or right before dinner if we were doing something after dinner, because sometimes after dinner we went to a random Wednesday night church service or things like that. But the beach was really nice. The water was not refreshing at all. It was very warm, and the water was very blue. It didn't really get very deep, but it was really fun to go there together in the evenings with everyone. And then lastly, every single night, kind of before everyone would go to bed, we'd have like a prayer circle, and someone would pray about like our day and then the next upcoming days of the trip. And yeah, a different person would do that every night. So that was really fun. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Reese. I was also one of the kids that went on this trip. I was very thankful to be going with everyone. It was a really fun time. So I'm talking about the evening church services that we went to. I think we went to 2 throughout the week. So the first one that we went to, the man that Shirley talked about, his name was Pastor Bartolo. He's the one that had the testimony of going through jail. So we went to his church service. He was a fun guy. Like Shirley said, he would kind of run up and down the aisles. He would get really excited. You could tell that he was on fire for the Lord, and I just thought that was really neat. So while we were there, how long do you guys think we were there? Like 2.5, 3 hours? We were there for a while. I mean, he wasn't talking the whole time, but he was talking most of the time. We had a time of worship, which, like Chloe said, that was really neat because we were able to sing some of the same songs, just in different languages, but we both knew what the words meant and everything like that. So that was neat. He gave that really long sermon. He talked about faithfulness, but that was a really neat church sermon to hear. And then the other service that we went to, Daniela, that we've talked about before, her fiance's church, I think her father-in-law was the pastor of that church. So we went there. They talked about relationships while we were in that church, and I thought one thing that was really neat. They gave an illustration. So they had one person stand right here in the middle, and they were representing God. And then they had a couple come up that was in the church, and one of them stood here, and one of them stood over here. So it was kind of like a triangle. The couple was across from each other, and the person that was representing God was up here. And he explained that the couple, when they are not close to God, they are far apart from each other, and they're not exactly united. And he told them to both come in towards the person that was being God, I guess, and then they were close to each other, and they were united again. So I just thought that was a really neat lesson growing up. It was just good to hear. So we had a lot of fun at the church services that we went to. Even if they were a little bit long, they were a lot of fun. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brandon Martin. I am 17, and I was the one of the youth privileged enough to go on this trip to Cuba. I get to talk about painting. A group of us for 2 days went to the mission to paint in an attic type area. It was very hot. This paint would have been used to protect the wood so that it won't rot later on. This was an oil-based paint, which it was a lot of fun trying to keep it off you because you then had to use gas to get it off. And then also made a few of us a little loopy and couldn't stop laughing later on. Uh, the mission in the future will be used for groups like us to come and serve the community, very similar to what we did, but instead of staying at a host house, most likely they will stay at the mission. Um, After each day, we went to a local place to have lunch. It would have been a nice sit-down restaurant. We got spaghetti both days. Um, there, the first day there was 10 of us, and we each got a nice big plate of spaghetti, and it was $22 for every 10 of us to have a big plate of spaghetti. So yeah, that's what our group did while painting.
Hello, my name is Caden Horst, and a couple of things I learned in Cuba is that we should be grateful for everything we have, and basic things like electricity. And it's cool to see how grateful they are for just electricity or something, very little things. And another thing is easy to forget that God works all across the world and not just in your area. And it's just cool to see how other cultures worship, even though it's completely different culture and language, and we're still worshiping the one and only true God.
Hi, I'm Megan Smoker, and I'm also going to be talking about some of the lessons and takeaways. So the first one is to slow down. In Cuba, the people have a lot more go with the flow mentality compared with Americans, and I feel like Americans, and myself too, I'm always busy and in a rush. So just to be reminded to slow down, whether it's like having more patience in a grocery store checkout line or driving. And then also, I was reminded that I need to put away my phone more. In Cuba, we didn't have service, so I was kind of forced to be off my phone. And it made me realize just how much time I do spend on my phone. And it's truly like a time stealer and just a distraction. So I've been trying to put away my phone and be more productive and find other things to spend my time on. And then the next one, Chloe kind of already talked about the worship, but they just worship so freely. So just to see that kind of love and joy that they show to everyone, and even us, I know like Cubans and Americans, I don't think they agree the most politically. So just that we were able to come and they were just able to welcome us with so much love, I was reminded that I need to have that kind of love and joy for other people. And then the next is to pray more. Cubans truly prioritize prayer. And I think as Americans and just people in general, we rely so much on ourselves. So it's just a good reminder to not focus on ourselves and prioritize prayer. And the next one, and probably the biggest one for me, is to stop complaining. The Cubans, I mean, they have so little compared to us, yet they don't complain. And I think us and Americans, we complain so much. And I was reminded of this when we were going through security. It was coming home from Cuba to America, and I have these little eyebrow scissors, and I didn't even realize they were in my bag, and they took them, and I was frustrated, and I was complaining about it. And then Brandon, the guy who was on the video, he was like, how much did those cost? And is it really that important? And I realized that my eyebrow scissors are probably one of like the littlest problems that I could have. So yeah, and just expressing gratitude for everything is just another takeaway. And I think I speak for all of us when I say that we learned a lot, and it was a really good and fulfilling trip.
So my name is Devin. I had the opportunity to be one of the leaders. Feels like I didn't really do a whole lot of leading. This group of kids, they did a fabulous job. I just sort of went along with the flow, and I didn't really have to step on anybody's toes, which is a blessing. Yeah, everybody did a great job. One thing that we were painting the one day, and we went into the mission, and I saw a couple buckets sitting there, and I was like, oh, what's on the bucket? And here's an MCC bucket. So they had MCC, which we helped support here, and many people have gone and helped pack things. There was canned meat there, which MCC is a big part of. So that was sort of neat to go and say, hey, okay, we've supported MCC, and then we're there in person. So that, for me, that was a pretty neat experience. Speaking of the food, the chef that we had, the host family, they did a fabulous job feeding us. If you like rice and beans, it was wonderful. It was great at the beginning of the week. At the end, I think everybody was sort of getting tired of the rice and beans a little bit, and looking for some variety. But yeah, he was somebody said before, he was the chef of the previous president, so everything was plated perfectly. It had like all the garnishes and everything. So that was pretty neat. I think that's all I had.
Hello, my name is Kevin. I wanted to first off give a shout out to the one person that was supposed to come on the trip and wasn't able to. That was Katrina. She did a lot of front end work to make this all happen, but just due to circumstances wasn't able to go with us. So thank you, Katrina, for making that happen and getting everything done on the front end so that we could all enjoy the experience. I didn't have it. Yeah. Devin and I didn't really have an assigned thing to talk about. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with my thoughts. Other than sometimes you think about Cuba and Russia and some of these communist countries, and you say, how can people think that way? And one of the things that stuck out to me was that in Cuba, the Cubans didn't choose to think that way. The Cubans were born there. They have no say in who their government is. They have no say in what their government does. They are forced to obey. They can't get out of the situation they're in. So that changed my perspective a little bit and how I just look at the world in general. We are extremely blessed to be where we're at and have the freedoms that we do. But being in Cuba and just seeing people with nothing, I've spent a lot of time in Honduras. You guys probably have heard stories of that over time. To give a little perspective of the comparison that I saw there, the Honduran peso exchanges, you get 25 Honduran pesos for $1 American. The Cuban peso exchanges for 370 to 1 right now. So $1 American gets you 370 Cuban pesos. A few of them mentioned a doctor. If you're involved in any kind of government position, that's kind of half of Cuba right now would be government. Your doctors make $25 a month. Eggs cost more than they do here. Fuel costs more than it does here. Fuel's rationed. You get 20 liters a month. And after that, you got to buy it from the black market if you want to get around. It's just to step into a situation like that and to see what everyone just has to go through to make a daily living. I mean, they mentioned the electricity's on maybe 4 hours a day. That's a really, really good day, and probably 1 or 2 of those hours is overnight when it's on. It's just a completely different environment. But in the midst of all that, there is a live church in Cuba that is huge and thriving and growing. You're not going to walk into any buildings like this. All the churches are going to be at somebody's house. I shouldn't say all the churches. There's a few that are smaller, but in a street that we went to. But they worship with such passion. They pray because they have to. They have no other choice, because without God, they're not getting through. So I think that was an encouragement to all of us. So we've got 10, 15 minutes. I'll hand the mic back to Alyssa and let her we'd love to have some questions. If you want a question, maybe call a youth out and ask them specifically.
Anybody have a question right now? If you don't, you should. Do they bother the churches? Surely. You talk to them. Okay, I'll talk.
So every church service that you're in, they always have somebody from the government there to spy on the church service because they want to make sure that you're not trying to like protest, like get people together to protest. So I guess the story would be me like sitting there and then, yeah, I figured out who was the person from the government who was sitting right behind me. So, yeah, but yeah.
Whenever there's large gatherings of people, the government's like, don't want to revolt. So that's kind of why churches are a big part of that. I think they were also, I was going to say something. I don't remember what it was. Jeff, you look like you were going to say something. Oh, nice. Gerald? Do you remember the Spanish word?
Nunca was never, because he was asking to keep focused straight on Jesus and never, nunca, never turn to the right or to the left, like straight. He went like this, straight. And the thing is, when I asked him how we could pray for him, that was an easy in for him to ask for finances, but he didn't ask for finances. He asked for focus on Christ, which to me spoke volumes, that was his focus.
I remembered what I was going to say. The person who comes to the church is usually not a paid person. It's just a member of the Communist Party who's doing that on their free spare time, which I thought was interesting when I was told that. In the back. What flavors of ice cream? Johnny. What were the flavors?
Guess I gotta stand up here. I just got like chocolate chip, and like vanilla because I'm kind of boring. There was a lot more flavors like mango and orange, pineapple. They know more than me here. Oh yeah, here we go.
Well, I'll stand up. The one day I had 7 scoops in one day, but it was like split up into 2 different trips. So like I had 3 and 4, and like we walked there, so I basically like burned it all off. But there was like coconut, mango, pineapple, tiramisu. There was like a lemon cookie, chocolate peanut butter. There was a coffee flavor. There was like, I don't know, there was everything. Like we would show up and there'd be like all new flavors and lots of different choices. So yeah, we definitely like increased their sales by a lot. So I always felt bad because we'd be this like huge like mass of Americans like coming into this tiny little store, but it was good. I was thankful for that ice cream place. Oh, wow, this is really hard. Honestly, probably the plain vanilla. It was like, I know, but it was like a different vanilla than from here. It was like refreshing, so it was good. Oh, and they had like donuts at the they had donuts too, so that was really good. And cake, and yeah, it was good.
Great, yeah. Yes. They didn't know when it was going to come on. It wasn't like we get 3 hours from here to there, but it was definitely controlled by the government. I don't know if anybody has further thoughts on that.
Definitely controlled by the government, and it had gotten a lot worse from what we were told in the past 4 years. There was a revolt about 4 or 5 years ago that didn't go so well for the people. They tried to stand up and kind of take a stand, and the government kind of wrangled everybody back in and kind of took over control, and that's when the electricity really started being turned off the majority of the time. So the electricity being off was just the government suppressing the people, trying to keep them tired, weak, and just unable to bring an uprising.
So there's like 12 or 14 categories that you can go to Cuba under, and we went under the helping and supporting the people, because that's what we were doing. There's also like you can go as a journalist or humanitarian aid, that kind of thing, but that was our in. Raise of hands. Who would eat a mango right now? Some are and some aren't. Sarah was like, by the end, she was like, I'm done. I'm so done. They were good. There were 2 different kinds. There were like the big mangoes you see in the store now, and there were small, like native mangoes. They've bred and engineered the mangoes to be bigger, but the small ones were also, I was like, this is a mango, but it's different. They're cool. Anybody have a fun story about the meal distribution you want to share? Chloe.
Okay, this isn't about the meal distribution, but it's about, I realized no one talked about, there was one day after, I guess it was Wednesday, after we helped in the like community of people with disabilities and kind of helped with them. Afterwards, we ate lunch at the church and then we split into 3 groups, I believe, 2 or 3 groups, and went to different houses of people who are really struggling physically and with disabilities but weren't able to be at the group. And so we were able to go pray for them at different houses, which was a really, really insane experience. The first house that my group went to, I don't remember who was in it, but there was a man who was 19, 20 years old and was, excuse me, and had been disabled since he was, I believe there were complications when he was born, and so he could not move at all. He was the size of about like a 5-year-old, and he had to just lay there in the heat. And his mom had been taking care of him for his entire life, and they were really struggling. So we were able to pray for them and give them a few things, no matter how small it felt, to be able to support them a little bit. And we also went to the house of a girl who was, I think, 25, and had been in a wheelchair for a lot of her life, and her body was very disabled, and she could not do very much, but her mind was incredible, and she's very, very smart, and she's trying to learn English, so she was talking to us a little bit, which was really cool, and we were able to pray for her. And I don't know if someone wants to share about the other people from the other groups, but that was an experience we didn't get to talk about at all, and was one that was really impactful to us to see the situations that people are going through in Cuba right now.
Anybody want to share about the other group or the distribution? Jaden, any thoughts?
So on Friday morning, we split into 3 groups, and each group went in a horse-drawn carriage, and this one I'm supposed to talk about, right? Okay. Okay, so my group, earlier that morning we had split up beans and rice and garlic, which is called the Cuban gold. There was a ton of garlic, and like mineral veggie things, and and then we went around or we individually packaged them to like each family, and then we went around and our group, there was like 6 in our group, and we handed out some beans and some rice and all that stuff, and we just visited and prayed for the families, and there was a lot of cool experiences there. There's a bunch of stories. I don't really have time to share them, but yeah, it was just it was a lot of encouragement to see the living conditions there, but how happy people were for just that little blessing of food, and yeah. Okay, so we brought money down there for that specific job, and they didn't just have food at the ready. They had to go around because there's no grocery stores there, so they couldn't just go out and buy the stuff. So they were constantly looking for like we were driving in the van, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're stopping here to go to see if they have enough beans, and or like this day, oh, there's rice here, but we couldn't. It took a while to find it, so it's not. I don't think it's like a normal thing for them to receive that. I mean, yeah.
We did it with a guy from a local church, and so he knew which families we were going to take it to, but I don't think it was like, a regular occurrence. They're like, hopefully we can find beans to distribute with this rice. Yes, Maria. Anybody know the answer to that question? A lot of unemployment or no? So a lot of people standing around, but there's also a lot of people standing around waiting for Rise to get to their jobs, is what I was under the impression of. Kevin, Devin, Shirley, anybody have? Yeah. Other questions? Any of the youth have final thoughts? Oh, yes. Were the roads paved? Braylon, why don't you tell us about the roads?
So I would say that the main roads were paved, like the ones like the central like highway area, I would say. That's where like most of the cars traveled on. That was paved, but then a bunch of the back roads or the areas towards the poor houses, they were not. They were mostly dirt roads and they were really bumpy. So our drivers were very experienced, so we were good. But yeah, most of them were paved, but not a lot.
Yeah, shout out our drivers, Tony and Juancito. You should ask everybody about Tony. They love him. It was really funny. Anyway, when we were distributing food, my group in our horse and carriage, we drove over like a whole flood. It was just like a puddle from here to there, and those streets were dirt. Any other thoughts or questions? Yes, Crystal. They are, including Devin. Devin he was getting it. Kevin was trying. He was trying his best. It was really funny. You might have to bribe them. But I'm just going to ask you guys all to continue to pray for the youth and for Cuba. I just ask that you would, one thing, like everywhere, every church we went to, they were all like talking about how there's a revival coming in Cuba. We split into two groups to play games with the youth group, and both groups wanted to name their team Revival. And I just thought that was really cool. Like they're praying for, they're looking for, and they're seeing revival in Cuba. So you can pray for that. Why are they all giggling? Yes. Oh. Okay, it's Sunday. We're all showing up at churches we've never been to, and all the ladies come up to you.
Alyssa is us, and she does not know what's going on. And she's tall, and I'm a little old woman who can't really do much. So in Cuba, they're like Cuban greeting is you go up to someone and you like kind of touch the side of your faces together and give a little kiss. And everyone does that to you, and you don't know what's going on, and you don't know that it's normal. And so we were all freaking out a little bit, and that was a fun culture shock moment for all of us.
And then we were having fun with it, and then we came to realize, oh, it's just ladies do it to other people. Ladies do it to ladies, and ladies do it to guys, but guys don't do it to guys. Because that would be weird, and that's a direct quote from Daniela, because we were asking her about it. Anyway, I think we're out of time, but I'm sure they'd be happy to share stories about the food and how they felt and what they saw and what they laughed about. But thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it.